Padrino. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel where we bring the most iconic action stories to life. Today we are diving into a true movie story on Padrino. Padrino is a 1984 Philippine action film written, produced, and directed by Fernando Poe Jr. The film also stars Poe as the titular Padrino, a local adaptation of the film, The Godfather. The film is notable for the casting of radio personality Ray Lenggit, of Kasenda Emong Lenggit fame, as an antagonist in the film, for his brother named Fernando Poe Jr. by birth, see Andy Poe. For the road, see Fernando Poe Jr. Avenue. For the LRT station, see Fernando Poe Jr. Station. In this Philippine name, the middle name or maternal family name is Telly and the surname or paternal family name is Poe. This article needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. Find sources: Fernando Poe Jr., newspapers, books, scholars, JSTOR, December 2021. Learn how and when to remove this message. Fernando Poe Jr., born Ronald Allen Kelly Poe, August 20, 1939 to December 14, 2004, was a Filipino actor, director, and screenwriter. Nicknamed The King, and often referred to by his initials FPJ, he has been described as a cultural icon, having dominated the Philippine box office from the 1960s to 1990s through his leading roles in action films. For his career that spanned nearly 5 decades, he has received numerous honors including the Order of National Artists of the Philippines in 2006 and the CCP Centennial Honors for the Arts in 1999. Poe appeared in around 300 films from 1955 to 2003, and 1. Poe entered the film industry as a stuntman following the death of his father, actor Fernando Poe Sr., and made his film debut in 1955 with Hanap and I Palaris, a sequel to a film that starred his father. His breakout came in the 1956 film Low Waist Gang and went on to star in action films that portrayed him as the champion and defender of the poor and oppressed. 6. His notable films include Only the Brave Know How, 1965, Lino Brocas Santiago. 1970, Celso and Castillo's Asadillo, 1971, Batola sa Buhangan, 1976, Dirigen Si Totally Bato, 1979, Eddie Romero's Adila, 1980, his self-directed On Ponde, 1980, and its sequels, Roman Rapido and the Saint Bala Kaulan. Both 1983, the 1986 films Ayo ang Tanda, Kenya ang Kavita, Muslim.357, and Bat ang Kriapo, Kate Kontin Paktingin, 1990, ang Provinciano, 1996, Isasambon Kita Sa Tari Ko, 1999, and on Dalapesa, 2000. Poe's accolades include 5 FAMAS Awards for Best Actor, and 2, a joint record, Den 3, that inducted him into the FAMAS Hall of Fame in 1988. He also won Best Director for his films on Padrino, 1984, and Kate Butas in Karyam, Papasakan Ko, 1995. Date: in 2004, FAMAS posthumously granted him the Natatanging Halagating Shining Award. Poe was also posthumously declared a National Artist of the Philippines in 2006, accepted by his family in 2012. 9. Poe ran for President of the Philippines in the 2004 election. He lost to the incumbent Gloria Macapagal Arroyo by just over 1 million votes, 3.48%, the closest margin by percentage between the winner and runner-up in the history of Philippine presidential elections. 7 months after the election, Poe died of a stroke. Hundreds of thousands attended his wake and funeral. 10. 11. Poe was married to actress Susan Rosas, who played his on-screen love interest in 17 films. 3. He is the father of Senator Grace Poe and actress Leviste Poe. Romuald Alan Kelly Poe was the son of Filipino actor and director Fernando Poe Sr., born Alan Fernando Poe y Reyes, 1916–1951, from San Carlos, Pangasinan, and Elizabeth Bessie Kelly, 1918–1999. He was born in Manila on August 20, 1939. He was known as Ronnie to his family. His parents, at the time of his birth, were not legally married until 1940. In 2004, Poe's political opponents tried to derail his bid for the 2004 Philippine presidency when they sought to disqualify him as an illegitimate son of a non-Filipino mother. He was the second among 6 siblings, including Andy, born Fernando Kelly Poe Jr., 1943–1995, 12, whose given name was used by Poe as his own professional name to bank on the popularity of his father, who was a top actor in his time. Conrad Poe was Poe's half-brother, the illegitimate son of Fernando Poe Sr. and actress Patricia Maharas. The original spelling of the family's surname was Poe, from his paternal grandfather, playwright Lorenzo Poe, a Catalan migrant from Majorca, Spain, who ventured into mining and business in the Philippines. In 1953, Poe finished his primary education at San Beda College. For high school, he attended San Sebastian College. He continued his education at Mapua Institute of Technology and University of the East and took the course Theater Arts. When his father died from rabies at age 34, Poe became the family's breadwinner. In order to support his family, he dropped out of the University of the East during his sophomore year. 13. Film career. Poe dropped out of college to work in the Philippine film industry as a messenger boy, and was given acting roles in subsequent years. 14. Starting as a stuntman for Everlasting Pictures, he was given a starring role in the film Anak ni Palares, Son of Palares, at the age of 14. The film, however, was not a big hit. In 1956, the film Low Waist Dang made him popular. 14, and the film was such a hit that low-waist pants became a fad. Also known as FPJ from his initials, Poe acted in a number of films which depicted him as the champion of the poor and downtrodden. He also directed films under the pseudonyms Lanner and Romualdo Reyes. Reyes originated from the surname of his paternal grandmother, Martha. He established FPJ Productions in 1961 and later organized other film companies. In 1963, he testified against criminal gangs, known as the Big Four, who extorted money from the film industry. In 1965, he shared the lead in The Ravagers. In the Philippines, this is titled Only the Brave Know How, a film depicting the United States and the Philippines working together against Japanese wartime occupation. The film is considered one of the most influential Filipino films. Poe won the most Best Actor awards at the FAMAS, citation needed. Among the films that received awards were Nga Alabak sa Lupa, 1967, Asadillo, 1971, Dirigen si Totoy Bato, 1979, Pisahanemo, Tatapusan Ko, 1983, and Muslim.357, 1986. Poe was one of the highest-paid film actors in the Philippines in the 1980s, alongside Dolphy and Vilma Santos, with his salary reaching over 1 million pesos per film. 15. In 1988, Poe partnered with San Miguel Corporation in a near 27 million Cuban pesos promotional deal for San Miguel beer. 16. His first endorsement of a product in his entire film career, with the first television commercial airing on January 20, 17. In mid-1993, Poe was then set to star in a film produced by Viva Films and directed by Pablo Santiago titled Tulaking Bibit, Kibiging Dibdib, with Alice Dixon cast as the female lead, though it did not come to fruition. 18. Among his roles were Flavio in the On Ponde fantasy series, Kate Konting Paktingen, Dito Sa Pitong Gatang and Nagila. His last film, Partners, also stars nine-ball billiards champion Efren Bata Reyes. Political career. 2004 presidential bid. Main article, Fernando Poe Jr. 2004 presidential campaign. Fernando Poe Jr. was the Coalición ng Nagkakaisang Pilipino, KNP's candidate for the 2004 presidential election. He accepted nomination in December 2003 and was to be the opposition candidate in the Philippines 2004 presidential election. 19. Personal life. Poe married actress Susan Rosas, the professional name of Jesusa Sonora, in a civil wedding in December 1968. They later married in a religious service, and among their primary sponsors were then-President Ferdinand Marcos and First Lady Imelda. Poe and Rosas adopted a daughter, Grace Poe, who became a senator. Poe was very reclusive about his personal life. However, in February 2004, during the presidential campaign, Poe admitted to having fathered two children out of wedlock. 20. He had an affair with actress Anna Marin and had one son, Ronian, and with former actress Rowena Moran and had a daughter, Lord Virginia. Poe was also known horse owner and horse racing enthusiast. Poe was admitted to St. Luke's Medical Center in Quezon City in the evening of December 11, 2004, after complaining of dizziness at a gathering in his production studio during a Christmas party. 22. He suffered from a stroke and slipped into a coma while being treated for a brain clot. Doctors described his condition as a cerebral thrombosis with multiple organ failure. 23. He died at the age of 65 on December 14 at 12:01 a.m. Philippine time, UTC plus 8 o'clock, without regaining consciousness. 23. His remains were initially transferred to the Arlington East Memorial Chapels in Pasig, now known as the Evergreen Memorial Chapels, before being transferred a day later to the Santo Domingo Church in Quezon City. 24. 25. Organizers of the 9-day wake claimed numbers as high as 2 million. 26. The funeral procession drew tens of thousands who crowded the streets of Quezon City, an event which drew comparisons to the funeral processions of former Senator Ninoy Aquino in August 1983, who also had his wake held at the Santo Domingo Church, and of actress Julie Veda in May 1985. He was buried in his family plot along with his parents in the Manila North Cemetery. On December 14, 2012, 8 years after his death, a monument to Poe was erected at the corner of Roxas Boulevard and Arquiza Street in Ermita, Manila, with widow Susan Rosas and daughter Grace Poe attending the unveiling. 27. On January 13, 2022, President Rodrigo Duterte signed Republic Act No. 11608, renaming Roosevelt Avenue in Quezon City as Fernando Poe Jr. Avenue. 28. On his 84th birth anniversary on August 20, 2023, Roosevelt Station of LRT Line 1 in Quezon City was renamed Fernando Poe Jr. Station. FPJ Arena, a sports arena in San Jose, Batangas also named in his honor, was inaugurated. 29. 30. In 2013, Tonton Gutierrez portrayed Fernando Poe Jr. in the life story of Poe's daughter Grace Poe, depicted by Eric Gonzalez, on Malala Mo Kaya. 31. In 2015, his 1997 film On Provinciano was remade by ABS-CBN into a TV series, starring Coco Martin as the main character to portray twins, namely SPO1 Ricardo, Cardo, Dallas and Police Senior Ains. Dominator, Adair de Leon together with Susan Rosas, FPJ's widow, 32-33. The FPJ Film Archives has been inscribed in the National Memory of the World Register of the Philippines, 34. In horse racing, Poe was posthumously inducted in the Philippine Racing Commission, PhilRacom, Hall of Fame in 2023 for promoting the discipline through his films, 35. The main road within the Metroturf Racecourse Complex in Batangas was also named after Poe. The main core of the KNP was the Angara wing of the LDP, which split in late 2003 over the issue of who would be its standard-bearer. Majority of LDP members led by Senator Edgardo Angara supported the presidential bid of actor Fernando Poe Jr. The other major party under the coalition was the PMP of deposed President Joseph Estrada. The KNP fielded Poe and Loren Legarda as its candidates for president and vice president in the 2004 Philippine presidential election. 2. After the 2004 elections, the KNP was replaced by Jojomar Binay-led Genuine Opposition as the main opposition coalition. History. Main article, Fernando Poe Jr. 2004 Presidential Campaign. On December 11, 2003, the opposition parties Pursang Masang Pilipino, PNP, Labanang Demokratikong Pilipino, LDP, formed KNP, with the addition of Nene Pimentel's PDP, Laban. Pimentel notably voted in favor of evidence examination during the impeachment trial of Joseph Estrada, and his party joined People Power Coalition in 2001. Movie star Fernando Poe Jr. and former PNP chief and Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson are the top contenders of the KNP's presidential nomination, with Poe officially selected by the KNP committee which Makati Mayor Jojomar Binay and Senator Juan Ponce Enrile are members. 3. Loren Legarda, who failed to get the Lakas presidential nomination, selected as vice presidential nominee in the first month of 2004. 4. Legarda resigned at Lakas after President Arroyo's retraction of her statement in 2002. Officially declares intention to run for full term. 5. 6. The Nationalist People's Coalition also joined KNP, with only the members of a wing led by former Senator Ernesto Kearney Theseda and House Minority Leader Chiz Escudero, which became KNP's spokesman. By mid-2003, Theseda said that multiple meetings of First Gentleman Mike Arroyo and his golfing buddies, which some of them are Arroyo's wife cronies, held at the Macapagdao residence at Forbes Park in Makati City to strengthen her campaign. 7. In April 12, 2004, KNP disclosed the plan of the administration's camp to thwart any protests in case of an Arroyo victory. Is it called the Oplan Checkmate, and it plans to isolate Poe and Legarda from the sleigh of the coalition who are in a position to mount mass actions against the government. One of those contacted was Enrile and Gringle Honasan, who serving as Poe's chief for vote security, notable heroes of the People Power in 1986, and Pimentel, 8. In April 17, 2004, 11 KNP staff leaves the coalition that either jumps into the administration camp or support other candidates. KNP later denied those, and they said that those staff who leave are only finding a higher salary job. Prospero Pichi, who is a congressman from Surigao del Sur, said that the coalition should be called Coalición ng Nadikalasan Pilipino. 9. Pichi also said that Poe did not have the skill of a leader as the latter can't unite the opposition. 10. In 2004, days before the election day, the NPC Tarlac chapter led by the Tarlac Governor Jose Yap rallied behind Arroyo, but supported KNP's Loren Legarda for vice presidency. Vice President of the Philippines, Filipino, Pangalawan Pangulo ng Pilipinas, also referred to as Vice Presidente ng Pilipinas, is the title of the second highest official in the executive branch of the Philippine government and is first in the presidential line of succession. The vice president is directly elected by the citizens of the Philippines and is one of only two nationally elected executive officials, the other being the president. The current office of the vice president was re-established under the 1987 Constitution, bearing similarities with the office as created in the 1935 Constitution that was abolished by the Marcos regime. The vice president may be elected to 2 consecutive 6-year terms. The 15th and incumbent vice president Sara Duterte was inaugurated on June 19, 2022, 1-2, but her term officially began 11 days later on June 30, as per the Constitution. The official title of the office in Filipino is Pangulawang Pangulo, although Vice Presidente, derived from Spanish, is the usual title used in some of the major Philippine languages, such as Cebuano and Hiligaynon language. The text of the 1987 Constitution refers to the person and office of the Vice President, with a hyphen connecting the two words. However, the person and office is usually referred to today without the hyphen, as the Vice President. The first known vice president claiming to be part of a government was Mariano Trias, whose term started on March 22, 1897. He was elected during the elections of the Tideros Convention, and was later elected vice president of the Supreme Council that oversaw negotiations for the Pact of Biak-na-Bato in 1897. This Supreme Council had no sovereignty, did not govern any state, and was just used for bargaining with the Spanish. This council was replaced later, with no such position existing during the country's Declaration of Independence in 1898, which had a dictatorial government. Officially, the country's first actual republic was founded in 1899, and it too had no vice president. Trias instead served in the cabinets of Apolinario Mabini and Pedro Paterno, as finance minister and war minister, respectively. Trias is not considered a Philippine vice president as the Supreme Council did not proclaim any sovereign state. Conceptualization and the Commonwealth. The 1935 Constitution, largely patterned after the U.S. Constitution, provided the basis for the Commonwealth government. It also established the position of Vice President, and as per Section 12, subsection 3, the Vice President may be appointed by the President to a cabinet position. But unlike their U.S. counterpart, the Vice President is not the President of the Philippine Senate, as senators choose their president from among their ranks. The first person elected to the position of Vice President under the Constitution was Sergio Osmeña, elected together with Manuel L. Quezon in the first Philippine national elections. Third Republic. Since the inception of the 1935 Constitution, the President and Vice President came from the same ticket and political party, until the 1957 elections, which saw the first ever split ticket that won the presidency and vice presidency. Fourth Republic. The 1973 Constitution abolished the office of the Vice President, and Fernando Lopez was therefore unable to finish his term. Subsequent amendments, particularly the 1984 amendments, restored the vice presidency. Arturo Tolentino was officially proclaimed vice president-elect by the regular Banasan Pambansa in 1986. He took his oath as vice president on February 16, 1986, before Chief Justice Ramon Aquino, but because of popular belief that the elections had been rigged, he never actually served out his term as vice president. Within a week after Tolentino's oath, the People Power Revolution resulted in the collapse of the Marcos regime. Fifth Republic. The People Power Revolution installed Corazon Aquino into the presidency. On February 25, 1986, Aquino and her running mate, Salvador Laurel, were sworn in as president and vice president, respectively, since the promulgation of the 1987 Constitution, only 2 elections have produced a president and a vice president from the same ticket. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and Nali de Castro in 2004, and Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte in 2022. Powers and roles. Aside from being mandated to assume the presidency in case of the death, disability, or resignation of the incumbent president, the 1987 Constitution did not lay out any explicit powers for the vice president, giving rise to the office being called a spare tire. 5. Article 7, Section 3 of the Constitution provided, however, that the vice president may be appointed to a cabinet position without the need for confirmation. Appointments usually must be confirmed by the Commission on Appointments, as per Article 7, Section 16 of the Constitution. Cabinet member. Since the inception of the 1935 Constitution, vice presidents have been appointed to cabinet positions, with a few rejecting the offer made by the seating president. Osmeña was given the highest-ranking cabinet portfolio with inauguration of the Commonwealth of the Philippines in November 1935. Prior to independence in 1946, that cabinet portfolio was Secretary of Public Instruction, which had once been reserved only for the Vice Governor General, an American. Vice President Osmeña held that position from 1935 to 1939, and a similar portfolio in the War Cabinet during World War II. After independence, the highest-ranking cabinet position became that of Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and is still the highest-ranking cabinet portfolio in official protocol to this day, which was given to Vice President Elpidio Quirino. Vice President Fernando Lopez declined the Foreign Affairs portfolio when he became Quirino's vice president in 1949 and instead served as Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources during his 2 non-consecutive terms. However, Vice Presidents Carlos P. Garcia and Emmanuel Pelaez also held the Foreign Affairs portfolio, a tradition revived in the Fifth Republic, as well as Vice Presidents Salvador Laurel and Teofisto Quingoma Jr. after the position's restoration in 1986. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo served as Secretary of Social Welfare and Development, and incumbent Sara Duterte served as the Secretary of Education. Other cabinet positions with no secretary title was given to Vice President Joseph Estrada as chairman of the Presidential Anti-Crime Commission and to Vice Presidents Nali de Castro, to Jomar Binay, and Lenny Robredo as chairman of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council. Among the vice presidents, Diosdado Macapagal alone was not given any cabinet position, since he was the first elected vice president that did not originate from the same party as the incumbent president. Successor to the Philippine president. The vice president is first in the presidential line of succession. The Constitution provides several circumstances where the vice president, or the vice president-elect, shall assume the presidency or serve as acting president. In case of the death, permanent disability, removal from office, or resignation of the president, the vice president shall assume the presidency. 14. If the president-elect fails to qualify for office, the vice president-elect shall act as president until the president-elect is qualified. 15. If in case of death, permanent disability, dismissed from service, resignation, or failure to assume the post, the Senate President shall assume the vice presidency. If a president is not chosen, then the vice president shall act as president until a president is chosen and qualified. 15. There have been 4 cases where the vice president has assumed the presidency, 3 of which because of the president's death, and 1 because of the president's resignation. Sergio Osmeña in 1944, upon the death of Manuel L. Quezon. Elpidio Quirino in 1948, upon the death of Manuel Roxas. Carlos P. Garcia in 1957, upon the death of Ramon Magsaysay. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo in 2001, upon the resignation of Joseph Edgarcito Estrada, as decided by the Supreme Court. 16. following the events of the Second EDSA Revolution. Other roles. Aside from their constitutional roles, the Vice President may initiate various programs and services under the office of the Vice President. The Vice President also performs ceremonial functions, occasionally representing the President, the government, and the country in official gatherings and diplomatic functions. The Vice President was also a member of the National Security Council, 17, until its reorganization in 2025, which removed the Vice President from the body. Natural-born Filipinos are citizens of the Philippines from birth without having to perform any act to acquire or perfect their Philippine citizenship. Those whose fathers or mothers are citizens of the Philippines at the time of their birth and those born before January 17, 1973, of Filipino mothers, who elect Philippine citizenship upon reaching the age of majority are considered natural-born Filipinos. Home provinces of the Vice Presidents. The Vice President is elected in the same manner as, but separately from, the President, by direct vote every 6 years, usually on the second Monday of May, 20. The latest election was held in 2022. Both the President and the Vice President are elected by direct plurality vote with a candidate who garners the highest number of votes, whether a majority or not, wins the election. 21. While candidates usually run in tandem for the offices of President and Vice President, under their own political parties, it is possible and not unusual for candidates from different parties to be elected as President and Vice President. Since the establishment of the Fifth Republic in 1986, only the elections of 2004 and 2022 had the winners come from a single ticket. The returns of every election for President and Vice President, duly certified by the Board of Canvassers of each province or city, shall be transmitted to Congress, directed to the President of the Senate. Upon receipt of the certificates of canvass, the President of the Senate shall open all the certificates in the presence of a joint public session of Congress not later than 30 days after Election Day. Congress then canvasses the votes upon determining that the polls are authentic and were done in the manner provided by law. Inauguration. Traditionally, the Vice President takes the oath first, a little before noon for 2 reasons. First, according to protocol, no one follows the President, who is last due to his supremacy, and second, to establish a constitutionally valid successor before the President-elect exceeds. During the case on inauguration, however, the Vice President and legislature were sworn in after the President, to symbolize a new start. In 2016, 22, and 2022, 23, the inaugurations for President and Vice President were held separately. Vice President-elect Sara Duterte broke tradition by taking oath on June 19, 2022, or days ahead prior to her scheduled assumption of office on June 30, 24. The Vice President-elect recites an oath, similar to the one recited by the President-elect, as provided by the 1987 Constitution. I, name, do solemnly swear, or affirm, that I will faithfully and conscientiously fulfill my duties as President, or Vice President or Acting President, of the Philippines. Preserve and defend its Constitution, execute its laws, do justice to every man, and consecrate myself to the service of the nation. So help me God. In case of affirmation, last sentence will be omitted. Constitution of the Philippines, Art. 7, Sector 5. The Filipino text of the oath used for the inaugurations of Presidents Fidel V. Ramos, Joseph Estrada, Benigno Aquino III, and Bongbong Marcos reads: Akosi, Pangalan, itintim kong pinananumpin, o pinatototahanan, na tutuparan ko non buon tanapatan at sitasigon 18 mga tuntulan bilan pangulo, o pangalawan pangulo o nanyanuntulan pangulo, in Pilipinas, paindalagan at ipagtatanggol kanyan konstitusyon, dipatutupad mga batas nito, majijin makatarungan sa bawat tao, at itatalaga ang ating sarili sa paglingkod sa bansa. Kasihan nawa akoing Dios. Kapag pagpapatuto, ang huling pangundasap ay kakaltasan. Constitution in Pilipinas, Articulo 7, SEK. 5. Traditionally, the language that the incoming president uses for his oaths shall also be the one used by the incoming vice president. Incumbency. Term limits. Under the 1935 constitutions, the vice president, along with the president, set the vice president's term at 6 years, with possibility of re-election as only the president was barred from seeking re-election. 25. In 1940, that shortened the term from 6 to 4 years, again without limitations on the number of terms for the vice president. The president, however, was barred from serving more than 2 terms. 26. Under the provisions of these constitutions, only Vice Presidents Osmeña and Lopez have won re-election. To date, only Fernando Lopez has served more than 1 term, a total of 3 terms, from 1949 to 1951, from 1965 to 1969, and again from 1969 until 1972 when the office was abolished. Under the 1987 Constitution, the Vice President is barred from serving more than 2 consecutive terms, i.e. can be re-elected after 1 election cycle and between the last allowed term. 21. Impeachment. Impeachment in the Philippines follows procedures similar to the United States. The House of Representatives, one of the houses of the bicameral Congress, has the exclusive power to initiate all cases of impeachment against the President, Vice President, members of the Supreme Court, members of the Constitutional Commissions, and the Ombudsman. When 1/3 of its membership has endorsed the impeachment articles, it is then transmitted to the Senate of the Philippines, which tries and decides, as impeachment tribunal, the impeachment case. A main difference from U.S. proceedings, however, is that only 1/3 of House members are required to approve the motion to impeach the president, as opposed to the majority required in the United States. In the Senate, selected members of the House of Representatives act as the prosecutors and the senators act as judges, with the Senate President and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court jointly presiding over the proceedings. Like the United States, to convict the official in question requires that a minimum of 2/3, i.e., 16 of 24 members, of the Senate vote in favor of conviction. If an impeachment attempt is unsuccessful or the official is acquitted, no new cases can be filed against that impeachable official for at least 1 full year. The Constitution enumerates the culpable violation of the Constitution, treason, bribery, graft and corruption, other high crimes, and betrayal of public trust as grounds for the impeachment of the Vice President, as applicable for the President, the members of the Supreme Court, the members of the Constitutional Commissions, and the Ombudsman. Sara Duterte is the first and only Vice President in Philippine history to have been impeached by the House of Representatives. On February 5, 2025, 215 lawmakers signed the impeachment complaint against Duterte, with an additional 25 representatives signing a document the following day in support of the complaint, bringing the total to 240. Voting 19-4-1, the complaint had been archived by the Senate wing with a frown. 27. It is not yet clear if a trial could proceed later, in consideration of the pending motions for reconsideration before the Supreme Court. Section 9 of Article 7 of the 1987 Philippines Constitution provides that whenever the office of Vice President is vacant, the President shall nominate a Vice President from among members of the Senate and House of Representatives, who shall assume office upon confirmation by a majority vote of all members of both houses of Congress, voting separately. 15. When the vice president becomes the president by succession, the new president can nominate a member of the Congress subject to confirmation from the majority of all members of both houses of the Congress. The Senate president may not directly be in succession for the position of the vice presidency unless nominated. There is only one instance where a member of the Congress has assumed the vacancy in the vice president position, that is in the case of then-Senator Teofisto Gingoma Jr., who was appointed as vice president of the Philippines by a royal on February 7, 2001. 28. Gingoma is the only vice president not nationally elected to the position. He is also the oldest person to have held the position, being appointed at the age of 72. He also concurrently served as Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Official residence. Historically, the vice president was not given an official residence. However, the vice president also held office along with the president at the Executive Building, now Kalayaan Hall, in the complex of Malacanang Palace from 1935 until 1972, when the position was abolished under martial law and the 1973 Constitution. When the position was reinstated, Vice President Salvador H. Laurel held office at the former Legislative Building on Padre Burgos Avenue, Manila, until the building became the National Museum of Fine Arts of the National Museum of the Philippines. The Vice President's office was transferred to the Philippine International Convention Center, and again to the PNB Financial Center, both in Pasay, Metro Manila in 2005, 29. In 2011, the Coconut Palace, also in Pasay, was designated as the principal workplace of the Vice President of the Philippines. Beginning June 30, 2016, the office was transferred to the Quezon City Reception House in Quezon City. 30. In July 2022, the Vice President's office was transferred to Cybergate Plaza in Mandaluyong, Metro Manila. 31. 32. 33. Vice President Sara Duterte plans to establish a permanent office for the position. The official state car of the Vice President of the Philippines from 1994 to 2016 was a Mercedes-Benz W140 S-Class. Jajomar Binay, the Vice President between 2010 and 2016, used a bulletproof Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series, which was replaced by the LC300 series in 2022, or a Lexus LX 570 on some occasions. The Vice President is also accompanied by a convoy of vehicles such as the Toyota Innova, Hilux, Fortuner, Hiace, Coaster, Land Cruisers, and Nissan Irvine, which contain personnel and security. In some instances, a Toyota Sequoia was also utilized by Vice President Duterte. 35. Vice President Sara Duterte uses a Sikorsky S-76C++ helicopter. It has been criticized by some people, who argue that it is a waste of taxpayer money. However, the Vice President's office has defended the use of the helicopter, saying that it is necessary for her to travel quickly and safely around the country, and so she can visit her children anytime. 36. 37. The Vice Presidential Security and Protection Group, VPSPG, is tasked with providing the Vice President and his or her immediate family security throughout their term in office. Previously a separate unit, the VPSPG was put under the Presidential Security Command in 2024. Prior to the VPSPG's activation in 2022, the Vice Presidential Security Detachment, VPSD, was responsible for the security of the Vice President, from Salvador Loyal to Lenny Robredo. 38, 39, 40. Similar to the setup of the PSC, the VPSPG's personnel jointly comes from the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. As of November 2024, the VPSPG has a strength of 350 military and police personnel. 41. In 2022, a Commission of Audit, COA, report revealed that the VPSPG had an initial strength of 433 personnel. By contrast, in 2020, the then VPSD had a maximum of 83 personnel, before being reduced to 78 the following year. Several vice presidents either lose re-election alongside their running mate or ascend to the presidency. After having been re-elected in 1941, Osmeña ascended to the presidency after President Quezon's death. Vice Presidents Quirino and Garcia never ran for re-election as vice president, as they would ascend to the presidency following the president's death. Vice President Lopez did not run for re-election in 1953, opting to run for senator instead. After being elected in 1998, Arroyo ascended to the presidency after President Estrada was ousted in the second EDSA revolution. She later ran for re-election in 2004 and won. 5 vice presidents ran for the presidency after their vice presidential term ended. 2 of them, Macapagal in 1961 and Estrada in 1998, won. 3 of them, Laurel in 1992, Benet in 2016, and Robredo in 2022, lost. 5 vice presidents ran for another office after their vice presidential term ended, and 2 succeeded. In 1953, Lopez ran and won for senator, finishing first. He would go on to win the vice presidency once more in 1965 and 1969. President Macapagal's running mate Pelaez also did not seek re-election for vice president, but instead sought the nomination of the opposing Nacionalista nomination for president, which she would eventually lose to then-Senator Marcos, 43. He would run for a seat in the House of Representatives in 1965 and won. In 2022, 2 vice presidents ran for senator. Benet lost, while De Castro withdrew less than a week after filing his candidacy. In 2025, Robredo ran for and won the position of mayor of Naga City. She is the first former vice president who did not later serve as president to run for and win a seat in a local executive position. Only Teofisto Gingoma Jr. did not pursue other office after his vice presidential term ended. Joseph Ejercito Estrada KGCA, H.Sido born Jose Marcelo Ejercito, April 19, 1937, also known by the nickname Irap, 1-8, is a Filipino politician and former actor who served as the 13th President of the Philippines from 1998 until his removal from office in 2001. He served as the 14th Mayor of San Juan from 1969 to 1986, the 9th Vice President under Fidel V. Ramos from 1992 to 1998, and the 26th Mayor of Manila from 2013 to 2019. His presidency was the third shortest in Philippine history, after Emilio Aguinaldo and Sergio Osmeña. Estrada began as a film actor, playing lead roles in several films over a 3-decade career. He entered politics in 1969 as a mayor of San Juan, and was a senator from 1987 to 1992. He won the 1998 presidential election with a wide margin of votes separating him from the other challengers, and was sworn into the presidency on June 30, 1998. In 2000, he declared an all-out war against Moral Islamic Liberation Front and captured its headquarters and other camps. 2. Allegations of corruption spawned an impeachment trial in the Senate. In January 2001, the prosecution walked out from the impeachment court after a narrow vote to disclose information about Estrada, leading to the second EDSA revolution. On January 20, Estrada was removed from office. His vice president, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, assumed the presidency. He was the first chief executive in Asia to be formally impeached. 3. After his arrest on April 25, 2001, On charges of plunder, his supporters rallied and marched to Malacanang Palace and attempted to storm the premises in EDSA 3. In 2007, Estrada was sentenced by a special division of the Sendagambian to reclusion perpetua under a charge of plunder for the embezzlement of the $80 million from the government, but was later granted a pardon by the president and his former deputy, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. He unsuccessfully ran in the 2010 presidential election and served as the mayor of Manila for 2 terms, from 2013 to 2019, becoming the first former president to be elected into a lower level of office after their presidency. Early life and education. Joseph Estrada was born as Jose Marcelo Edricido at 8:25 p.m. on April 19, 1937 in his home in Tanda, an urban district of Manila. His family later moved to the wealthy suburb of San Juan, then a municipality in the province of Rizal. He belonged to a wealthy family and was the 8th of 10 children of Emilio Edricido Sr., 1899 to 1977, and his wife, Maria Marcelo, 1906 to 2009. After graduating from the Ateneo Elementary School in 1951, he was expelled during his second year of high school at Baguio for defending his classmate, Mario Tayacqui, who later became Energy Secretary under Estrada. Tayacqui was bullied by a burly American named Patrick Hilton in the restroom. Both Estrada and Hilton were dismissed but later struck a friendship in school reunions. 5. Estrada graduated high school at the Mapua Institute of Technology, MIT, and during college, he enrolled in Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at the MIT to please his father. He would leave once again and transferred to Central Colleges of the Philippines, CCP, College of Engineering, but dropped out to pursue films. 6. Estrada's first partner was his St. John's Academy schoolmate Mercedita Ditas Carmona, whom he began dating at the age of 15. 7. Date. Estrada was alleged to have nearly lost his life defending himself against a knife attack in the mid-1950s, being rushed to the North General Hospital in Manila after the incident. In his 20s, he began a career as an actor, usually playing the role of the villain/antagonist. He adopted the stage name, Joseph Estrada, as his mother objected to his chosen career and his decision to quit schooling multiple times. He also acquired the nickname, Harap, a play on the Tagalog slang, pair, meaning buddy, from his friend, fellow actor Fernando Poe Jr. Estrada gained popularity as a film actor, playing the lead role in over 100 films in an acting career spanning some 3 decades. In 1974, Estrada founded the Movie Workers Welfare Foundation, MAWFund, which helps filmmakers through medical reimbursements, hospitalization, surgery and death benefits, livelihood, alternative income opportunities, and housing. Its educational arm, the MAWFund Film Institute, has produced some of the most skilled and respected producers, filmmakers, writers, and performers in both the independent and mainstream sectors of the industry since its inception in 1979. 9. He also founded, together with Guillermo de Vega, the first Metro Manila Film Festival in 1975. Estrada entered politics in 1967, running for mayor of San Juan, failing and only succeeding in 1969 after winning an electoral protest against Braulio Estill. Domingo. 4. His administration achieved many infrastructure developments. These included the establishment of the first municipal high school, the Agora Complex, a modern slaughterhouse, a sprawling government center with a post office, a mini park, and the paving of 98% of the town's roads and alleys. Citation needed. As mayor, he paid particular attention to the elementary education of children by improving and renovating school buildings, constructing additional school structures, health centers, barangay halls, and playgrounds in all barangays, and providing artesian wells to areas with low water supply. He relocated some 1,800 squatter families out of San Juan to Taytay, Rizal, at no cost. He was also the first mayor to computerize the assessment of the real estate tax at the Municipal Assessor's Office. 11. When Corazon Aquino assumed the presidency in 1986, all elected officials of the local government were removed and replaced by appointed officers in charge, including Estrada. In 1987, Estrada won a seat in the Senate under the Grand Alliance for Democracy, GAD, placing 14th in the elections. Out of 24 winners, 4, he was appointed chairman of the Committee on Public Works. He was vice chairman of the Committees on Health, Natural Resources and Ecology, and Urban Planning. 12. In the Senate, Estrada sponsored bills on irrigation projects and the protection and propagation of the carabao, the beast of burden in the rural areas. 4. Estrada and 11 other senators, dubbed the Magnificent 12, in media coverage, voted to terminate the APUS military bases agreement in 1991, leading to the withdrawal of American servicemen from the Clark Air Base in Pampanga and the Subic Naval Base in Zambales. 13. In 1989, the Free Press cited him as one of the 3 outstanding senators of the year. He was conferred the degree of Doctor of Humanities, honoris causa by the University of Pangasinan in 1994, and by the Baikal University in April 1997. In 1992, Estrada initially ran for president under the Partido ng Masang Pilipino, PNP, with Vicente Rivera Jr. as his running mate and fellow actor Fernando Poe Jr. as his campaign manager. 14. The Philippine film industry called for a 60-day moratorium on all film projects by March for industry figures to help Estrada's presidential campaign. 15. However, Estrada reluctantly withdrew his bid on March 30 due to financial issues and instead became the running mate of Eduardo Cojuangco Jr. Under the Nationalist People's Coalition, Estrada expressed that the decision was very painful, if not traumatic. 16. Though Cojuangco lost to former National Defense Secretary Fidel V. Ramos for the presidency, Estrada won the vice presidency, garnering more votes than his closest opponent Marcelo Fernan, Ramon Mitra Jr.'s running mate. As vice president, Estrada was the chair of President Ramos' Presidential Anti-Crime Commission, PCC. Estrada arrested criminal warlords and kidnapping syndicates. 17. He repeatedly topped surveys on government officials' performance conducted by the social weather stations within his first 2 years as vice president and was named Man of the Year by ABS-CBN for 1993. 18. He resigned as chair in 1997. In the same year, Estrada, together with former President Corazon Aquino, Cardinal Jamie Sin, Senator Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, and other political leaders, led an anti-charter change rally that brought in an estimated 500,000 people to Rizal Park against the charter change moves by Ramos and his supporters. 19. Estrada was the first president to use a special name as his official address name, combining his real family name, Edricito, with his screen name, thus forming Joseph Edricito Estrada. 23. Estrada was inaugurated on June 30, 1998, in the historical town of Malolos in Bulacan Province, in paying tribute to the cradle of the First Philippine Republic. That afternoon, the new president delivered his inaugural address at the Quirino Grandstand in Moneta. He assumed office amid the Asian financial crisis and with agricultural problems due to poor weather conditions, thereby slowing the economic growth to -0.6% in 1998 from 5.2% in 1997. 24. The economy recovered by 3.4% in 1999 and 4% in 2000. 25. In 2000, he declared an all-out war against the Moral Islamic Liberation Front, MILF, and captured its headquarters and other camps. 2, 26, allegations of corruption, 27, spawned a railroaded impeachment trial in the Senate courtesy of House Speaker Manuel Villar, and in 2001 Estrada was ousted by a coup after the trial was aborted. In his inaugural address, Estrada said, 100 years after Cowlick, 50 years after independence, 12 years after EDSA, and 7 years after the rejection of foreign bases, it is now the turn of the masses to experience liberation. We stand in the shadow of those who fought to make us free, free from foreign domination, free from domestic tyranny, free from superpower dictation, free from economic backwardness. 28. Main articles: 2000 Philippine Campaign against the Moral Islamic Liberation Front and Battle of Camp Abubakar. During the Ramos administration, a cessation of hostilities agreement was signed between the Philippine government and the MILF in July 1997. This was continued by a series of peace talks and negotiations in Estrada administration. 26. The MILF, an Islamic group based and formed in 1977, seeks to be an independent Islamic state from the Philippines, and, despite the agreements, a sequence of terrorist attacks on the Philippine military and civilians still continued. 26. These included the kidnapping of a foreign priest, namely Father Luciano Benedetti, the destruction by Asan of Talayan, Maguindanao's municipal hall, the takeover of the Kauswagan Municipal Hall, the bombing of the M/V Our Lady of Mediatrix Ferry at Ozamis City, and the takeover of the Narciso Ramos Highway. By doing so, they inflicted severe damage on the country's image abroad, and scared much-needed investments away. For this reason, on March 21, 2000, Estrada declared an all-out war against the MILF. During the war, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, CBCP, asked Estrada to negotiate a ceasefire with the MILF, but Estrada opposed the idea, arguing that a ceasefire would cause more terrorist attacks. For the next 3 months of the war, Camp Abubakar, headquarters of the MILF, fell along with other 13 major camps and 43 minor camps, and then all of which became under control by the government. The MILF leader Hashim Salamat fled to Malaysia. The MILF later declared a jihad on the government. On July 10 of the same year, the Estrada went to Mindanao and raised the Philippine flag symbolizing victory. After the war, Estrada said, "We'll speed up government efforts to bring genuine and lasting peace and development in Mindanao." In the middle of July, Estrada ordered the military to arrest top MILF leaders. 29. In his State of the Nation address, SOMA, Estrada highlighted his vision for Mindanao. The first is to restore and maintain peace in Mindanao, because, without peace, there can be no development. The second is to develop Mindanao, because, without development, there can be no peace. The third is to continue seeking peace talks with the MILF within the framework of the Constitution, because a peace agreed upon in good faith is preferable to a peace enforced by force of arms. And the fourth is to continue with the implementation of the peace agreement between the government and the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF, because that is our commitment to our countrymen and the international community. In addition to this, Estrada said his administration can move with more speed in transforming Mindanao into a progressive economic center. 1. High on the list of priorities was the plight of MILF guerrillas who were tired of fighting and had no camps left to which to report. On October 5, 2000, the first massive surrender of 669 LC MILF Mujahideen led by the renegade vice mayor of Maragong, Lano Dalso Maipandi Kasandi Serap, and 7 other battalion commanders, surrendered to Estrada at the 4th ID headquarters in Camp Edilberto Evangelista, BGY. Patag, Cagayan de Oro City. They were followed shortly by a second batch of 855 surrenderees led by Lost Command MILF Commander Seben M. Peso on December 29, 2000. See also, New People's Army Rebellion Section 1995 JSIG and 1998 Carral Agreements. In August 1998, Estrada signed the Comprehensive Agreement on Respect for Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law, PARAL, which was drafted under President Fidel Ramos, 33. Estrada, on December 28, 2000, signed the Rome Statute establishing the International Criminal Court. This section needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources in this section. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. August 2025, learn how and when to remove this message. In October 2000, Ilocos Governor Luis Chavit Singson, a close friend of Estrada, alleged that he had personally given Estrada 400 million Cuban pesos as the payoff from Utang, a grassroots-based numbers game, hidden in a bank account known as Jose Velarde, as well as 180 million Cuban pesos from the government price subsidy for the Tobacco Farmers Marketing Cooperative after Estrada ordered a full-blown investigation into Chavit Sinson's alleged misuse of millions of pesos in public funds. Cockfighting magnate Otto Mon, a marketing consultant for the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, PAGCOR, and a close associate of Estrada, 36, was also accused by Sinson of acting as an intermediary in Estrada's transactions involving money from Utang, 37. In the 2004 Global Transparency Report by Transparency International, Estrada, together with Ferdinand Marcos, made it into the list of the world's all-time most corrupt leaders in the world. Estrada was listed 10th and was said to have amassed between $78 million to $80 million. Sinson's allegation caused controversy across the nation, which culminated in the House of Representatives filing of an impeachment case against Estrada on November 13, 2000. House Speaker Manny Villar fast-tracked the impeachment complaint. The motion to impeach Estrada was endorsed by 115 Congress representatives, which is more than one-third minimum required votes to impeach Estrada. 39. The impeachment suit was brought to the Senate and an impeachment court was formed, with Chief Justice Hilario Davide Jr. as presiding officer. Estrada pleaded not guilty. This was the first time the Filipino public witnessed, through radio and television, an elected president stand in trial and face possible impeachment with full media coverage. During the trial, the prosecution presented witnesses and alleged pieces of evidence to the impeachment court regarding Estrada's alleged involvement in Utang. The existence of secret bank accounts which he allegedly used for receiving payoffs was also brought to the fore. On the evening of January 16, 2001, the impeachment court voted not to open an envelope that allegedly contained incriminating evidence against Estrada as it was not part of the impeachment complaint. The final vote was 11 to 10 to keep the envelope closed. 40. The prosecution panel, of congressmen and lawyers, walked out of the impeachment court in protest of this vote. 41. The 11 senators who voted not to open the envelope are known as the Craven 11. The following day, the Supreme Court declared the presidency vacant even without Estrada's resignation. 43. At noon, Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was sworn in by Chief Justice Hilario Davide Jr. as President of the Philippines. Before Estrada departed from Malacanang, he issued the following press release. At 12:00 noon today, Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo took her oath as President of the Republic of the Philippines. While along with many other legal minds of our country, I have strong and serious doubts about the legality and constitutionality of her proclamation as President, I do not wish to be a factor that will prevent the restoration of unity and order in our civil society. It is for this reason that I now leave Malacanang Palace, the seat of the presidency of this country, for the sake of peace and to begin the healing process of our nation. I leave the palace of our people with gratitude for the opportunities given to me for service to our people. I will not shirk from any future challenges that may come ahead in the same service of our country. On April 25, 2001, the Sandigambian charged him and his son Jinggoy with plunder and had them arrested. His supporters marched to the EDSA shrine to stage a protest demanding Estrada's release and his reinstatement as president, among whom were his wife Loy Ejercito and political allies such as Juan Ponce Enral, Panfilo Lacson, Gringo Honasan, and Miriam Defensor Santiago. In the early morning of May 1, supporters of Estrada marched straight to the gates of Malacanang Palace, where violence erupted and forcing President Arroyo to declare a state of rebellion. 46. Many protesters were injured in the ensuing riots and arrested, with 4 casualties, while many journalists were also injured due in part to the protesters' general hostility to the media. 47. 48. The government called out the military and was able to quell the riots with tear gases and warning shots. Under a maximum tolerance policy, 49, the riots came to be generally known as EDSA 3, though others have argued against the use of the name. Estrada was initially detained at the Veterans Memorial Medical Center in Quezon City and then transferred to a military facility in Tane, Rizal. 1, but he was later transferred to a nearby vacation home, virtually under house arrest. Under Philippine law at the time, plunder had the maximum penalty of death. The death penalty was eventually repealed by 2006. The Sandigambian Special Division, on June 27, 2008, ordered Estrada to file a comment within 10 days on the motion of the Ombudsman's special prosecutor to reopen the trial of his perjury case regarding his 1999 Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, SALN. The court was also to resolve Banco de Oro's, formerly Equitable PCI Bank, plea that it could not determine, without hazard to itself, whom to turn over to the P1.1 billion Jose Velarde assets due to claims by Wellex Group / William Gachalian and a Bureau of Internal Revenue stay order. 50. Clemency and release from detention. On October 22, 2007, Acting Justice Secretary Agnes Devanatara stated that Estrada was seeking a full, free, and unconditional pardon from President Arroyo. 51. Estrada's lawyer Jose Flaminiano wrote Arroyo, "The time has come to end President Estrada's fight for justice and vindication before the courts. Today, Monday, we filed a withdrawal of his motion for reconsideration." Estrada stressed the delicate condition of his mother in asking for pardon. 52. 53. On October 25, 2007, President Arroyo granted executive clemency to Estrada based on the recommendation by the Department of Justice, DOJ. Acting Executive Secretary and Press Secretary Ignacio A. Bani courted the signed order. In view hereof and pursuant of the authority conferred upon me by the Constitution, I hereby grant executive clemency to Joseph Ejercito Estrada, convicted by the Sandigambian of plunder and imposed a penalty of reclusion perpetua. He is hereby restored to his civil and political rights. 54. Bani noted that Estrada committed in his application not to seek public office. 55. And he would be free from his Tane rest house on October 26, at noon. On October 26, 2007, after almost 7 years of detention, Estrada was released after the Sandigambian promulgated the resolution. During the 2010 presidential election, Estrada stated in interviews that he would be willing to run for the opposition if they would be unable to unite behind a single candidate. 61. Father Joaquin Brenes and Christian Monset, members of the Constitutional Commission that drafted the 1987 Constitution. stated that the Constitution prohibited any elected president from seeking a second term at any point in time. 62. Romulo Macalintal, Election Council of President Arroyo, said that the constitutional ban did not prevent Estrada from attaining the presidency if he were to be elevated from the vice presidency. For example, 63. Rufus Rodriguez, one of Estrada's lawyers, claimed that Estrada was within his rights to do so because the prohibition banning re-election only applied to the incumbent president. 61. On October 22, 2009, Estrada announced that he would run again for president with Makati Mayor Jojomar Binay as his running mate. 64. His senatorial lineup included Francisco Tatat, Juan Ponce Enral, Jinggoy Estrada, Joey De Venecia, and Miriam Defensor Santiago. 65. Estrada lost to Senator Benigno Aquino Free in the election. 66. In October 2010, the magazine Foreign Policy included Estrada in its list of 5 former heads of states/governments who did not make a positive difference in the world, but faded away into obscurity. Also included in this bad exes list were Thailand's Thaksin Shinawatra, Spain's Jose Maria Aznar, and Germany's Gerhard Schroeder. 67. Estrada announced in November 2010 that he would be selling his 3,000 square meter, 32,000 square feet, home in San Juan for about 200 million Cuban pesos to pursue his real estate business. 68. Agence France-Presse reported that Estrada has put up 2 high-rise residential condominium buildings and plans to build a third soon. 69. Estrada plans that his remains will be buried in the grounds of the Joseph Ejercito Estrada Museum and Archives. 70. In Tane, Rizal. This was revealed by his son, Jinggoy Estrada, in a YouTube video in 2020. 71. The burial place was built near a rock where the former president frequently prays in his former rest house, which became the location of his house arrest after his presidency. Originally planning to serve for 1 term only, 79, he changed his mind and ran for re-election in 2016. 80. This time, his running mate was former 4th District Councilor and OIC City Social Welfare Officer Dr. Honey Lacuna Pendon. Estrada won in a tight race over former Mayor Alfredo Lem by around 2,000 votes, while Lacuna was elected vice mayor as well. 81. Estrada best described his accomplishments as mayor of Manila as having been able to provide the basic needs of Manilinos, from womb to tomb. He boasted of comprehensive public services from free hospital and medical care services to all residents of Manila, starting from mothers giving birth, free books, uniforms, and health snacks for public school students, all the way to free burial and cremation.